Should the Utah Jazz bail the Milwaukee Bucks out of their troubles and trade for Dame Lillard? Yes, it makes lots of sense. Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Fun Friday show. How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. To the everydayers out there, you're the best. Thanks for being here each and every day. And hopefully you've enjoyed this week-long series on Draft by the Numbers. I have a bunch of plane flights in the next 4 or 5 days, so I've got a bunch of games downloaded. We'll start watching players coming up here. Dylan Harper, Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, a bunch of players. I'll get to learn who they are coming up in the next week. We'll do a lot of that for you coming up. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, here's the plan. Late game watch to wrap. Jalen Brunson goes bonkers. Detroit collapses. We'll touch on that. Some interesting strategy moves in that one, and I was actually way wrong on something. Draft picks by the numbers. We'll wrap up the top 30 players, and over the next few weeks, I'll be going through players 30 through 50 and kind of looking to see if anybody pops in that. Two Ask LOJ questions for you today on the Friday edition, even though I'm doing a full LOJ. Before I dig into the first one, I want to congratulate and sadly say Jazz assistant coach Evan Brads, who I've really, really enjoyed getting to know as a person and a friend. I think I'd call him a friend. It's always a funny game. I'm like so much older than these guys. Has taken the assistant job at Duke. And so he's leaving the Utah Jazz staff. Will Hardy has built a young, energetic staff of super talented people, from Sean Sheldon to Evan Brads to Chris Jones to, Rick Higgins to, now I'm in the game where I have to mention everyone, Andrew Warren, to all the guys, young guys with, Scott Morrison and Jason Terry is kind of the vets around it. And this is kind of what's going to happen. We're going to start, Will's so well respected, we're going to start losing some guys who get some opportunities inside us. And that's the reality. But on the other level, a bummer. I really like Evan a great deal and enjoyed talking with him. And his grandfather actually played on the Dallas Chaparrals in the ABA with Ron Boone. Cool story. All right, so I've had some questions throughout the week, so we're going to do a truncated Friday edition of Ask LOJ. And the first one was, if the Jazz aren't winning next year, should the Jazz trade for Damian Lillard and get picks? And the answer is yes, 100%. This is a very creative idea. It's the correct way to do things. It's where I thought the Jazz struggled last year in draft position because we just had too much talent. The hidden thing the Oklahoma City Thunder did when the Thunder had their 2 years of development and not winning was they had a bunch of contracts on their books of players that just weren't even around. Al Horford, Derek Favors, things like that. And then that alleviated them the problem of having too many players and trying to figure out how you're managing the roster. So yes, there's two ways you can do this trade. One is what Milwaukee would probably like, which is Lauri Markkanen. And so if you're doing that, what you start to say is, okay, well, if I'm trading you Lauri Markkanen's value is X amount of first-round picks. And then part two is us taking $48 million of Dame Lillard's contract for next year, and I believe 40, maybe even 50 million of his contract the year after. Now, the Well, I think this is a really legitimate idea. It does pot commit you. Dame Lillard's $54 million this next year and $58 million in 26-27. It does pot commit you to development and probably not winning for the next 2 years, which, in my opinion, just my opinion, have not talked to Ryan Smith or Justin Zanuck or Danny Ainge about this. I kind of think we are. So once you've done what we did this last year and gone through it and put yourself in draft position and now resting on 10 days from now in the lottery, I think you've got, even if you get Cooper Flagg, I don't think you have an immediate pivot. Even if you get Cooper Flagg. If you have Cooper Flagg, you are ready 3-4 years from now. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, third, fourth year, start going. But I don't think you're like immediately Cooper Flagg's arrived, we're winning 45 games. The league's too hard, and the roster's not built for that. So I actually think you got Cooper Flagg. You go through what Kevin Durant. Let's go to the greatest players of all time. Let's presume for a second that Cooper Flagg is everything he seems to be. Well, LeBron James in 23-24 won 33 games and lost 46 in the 79 games he played. So, yeah, you might not be bottom 5. You might be still. And frankly, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to win the MVP, and they were bottom 5 when they had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the roster. They managed it beautifully, but that's what they did at Oklahoma. And if you go to Kevin Durant, in Kevin Durant's first year, the final year in Seattle, they lost a lot of games on purpose, I think, because they wanted Seattle to hate them, but that's a different story. I mean, they went 20-62. So you get Cooper Flagg, it's not an immediate pivot. And to some extent, what all the data shows me is if you do this developmental thing and you lose 60 games a year plus, if you do it for 3 years in a row, it works. Detroit, Orlando, Houston, look around. It's working. So I think we're pot committed already. At least I hate to say it, I kind of hope we are, right? I'd hate to see us get a weak stomach and bail out of this, having been through last year and then not get the benefit of it. The benefit of it is that you get to beat Detroit, who should have beat New York in this playoff series, or at least is onwards. Now add Jaden Ivey, see where they are. They're exciting. Houston, they may get Golden State here. I'm not sure. I don't think Houston's got enough juice and energy, and Golden State's tired. That Houston's going to go get tonight and go take Game 7. Someone's going to win a Game 7 on the road. One of these down 3-1 teams wins. It's either going to be Houston or the Clippers. So the way you structure this deal is there's first value for what you're sending them. And then there's value for Dame Lillard's $54 and $58 million contract and the fact you're bailing them out of jail. So the way you can start just figuring out, like, if the money works. So the money works on a Jordan Clarkson, Lauri Markkanen for Dame Lillard, Pat Connaughton, and I think you have to throw in Tyler Smith just to get the money to work. What do you get for that? Well, Lowry's probably worthy of first-round draft pick or 2. And Dame Lillard's contract's probably worth a first-round draft pick or 2. So suddenly, I'm not sure the Bucks would totally agree with this because they can't give them all away. But are you getting the Bucks 2026 pick? That's the one they would want to send you. Are you getting the Bucks 2028 pick? And are you getting the Bucks 2031 pick? They literally would not have another first-round draft pick to their name. So when they say no to that, which seems possible that they would say no to that, you can actually do it with just Pat Connaughton and Dame Lillard. And the Jazz get 3 first-round picks for Lauri Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson and taking their contract. I mean, if you're in the rebuild, you have to seriously consider that one. And if you're the Bucks, you have to seriously consider it also. You're getting Lauri Markkanen for Dame Lillard. You still have it. You're probably as good a talent as you can get. You don't have many teams who are willing to do a deal like this. You get Lillard off your books. You get a full contract of value. You might try to argue that you want Colin Sexton instead of Jordan Clarkson. Fine. We'll take the 3 first-round picks. That's clearly what we're doing. The other model is if John Collins opts in, I think you can do a John Collins, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson deal for Pat Connaughton, Tyler Smith, Dame Lillard. I don't think you're getting 3 first-round picks anymore. You might get 1, maybe 2. If John Collins, Colin Sexton, or Jordan Clarkson could yield a first-round pick, and the Jazz, I think, would have traded them by now, honestly. Let's just be honest about it. So this leads me to think that maybe the combo of them, 3 viable players, and then you're taking Dame Lillard's contract, and maybe you can get 2. So maybe you get the 2026, which is the one Milwaukee's going to want to send you because they think they're still going to be good. And maybe you go down the road with Milwaukee and say, we want your 2031. But it's a really interesting possibility, and it's a really logical possibility that there is a real value for the Jazz to have $50 million of dead money on their contracts, on their books the next 2 years. It allows you to manage the roster a lot better. And if you're getting future assets to it, it puts you in a pretty golden position. And if we go back to the whole conversation of yesterday's show, I might argue some of these draft picks are more valuable if you get good here in a minute. I'll explain that next when we continue on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs, just good people. I spent some time with Blake this week. Just literally, I'll be totally, send him a text later. Just said, love your authenticity. The dude's just real. It's like such a pleasure to deal with. He's looking you in the eye. He's asking you questions. He wants to know. He's just a good dude. And that's, I think, what the Murdochs are all about. They want to make sure that you feel like you've been interacting with someone who's authentic and cares about you. And it's pretty great. The Hyundai lineup of cars, fabulous. I'm driving the Santa Fe right now. Absolutely love it. Had the Palisade before that. Ideal. Own the Ioniq 5. Own 2 Santa Fe's. Cannot express enough how much I enjoy those cars and what they bring. Get more bells, more whistles for the dollar, plus the great experience over at Murdoch Hyundai. If you're going to stop by and you're looking for a Hyundai, email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. We'll set you up with a Locked On VIP meeting. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. If you looked at your bank account recently and been like, wait, where? Where did it all go? Well, there's a lot of answers to that question. But between dining out and online shopping and delivery fees and entertainment and skiing addictions, where sometimes it's interesting. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility, control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. You find out interesting things with Monarch Money. You realize how much you're spending on various different little items in life and how easy it is to cut those back a tiny bit and have more money in the account. Plus, you get the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Easy collaboration. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA. Half off your first year with Monarch Money. Thanks so much for the Locked On Jazz today and being an everydayer. I love it. Appreciate you immensely. So the question was asked, built on yesterday's show, if not the big 2 and the big 3 anymore, how do you build a roster? So let's take the Jazz, for example, and why like a deal like the Damian Lillard deal might really make a lot of sense. What I'm seeing when I look at the charts we had on yesterday's program, where the teams are spending the most money for their big 2 and the most money for their big 3 are getting knocked out. Where you kind of look at what the Clippers just did. And you look at what even the Karl Anthony Towns trade by Minnesota. Minnesota's high on this list of teams that have paid their big two and their big three a lot of money, but they are way lower than they were. So one thing Minnesota did is they went and took Karl Anthony Towns, who plays 34 minutes a night, and traded him for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. And I loved the deal from the beginning, if you recall, because I thought Dante DiVincenzo gave them relief for Mike Conley's aging. But more importantly, what I think at this point is they got themselves 58 minutes, maybe even 60 minutes of viable basketball a night and traded 34. There's something really to this. It's a little bit what the Clippers did. The Clippers moved Paul George, and if we go back through the whole Paul George saga last year, there's some really interesting things to it. Mostly when Paul George goes on his own podcast and starts talking about how the first offer the Clippers made to him, which I think was like a 4-year, $80 million offer, and he's so offended. That offer to me from the Clippers is so low that they're making sure there's zero chance he can take it. Like he kind of told on himself. In other words, the Clippers offered him a 4-year, 130. Even that might have seemed low, but there was always a chance he would take it. You're in the negotiating window. You got a chance to get this. They clearly didn't want to get this deal done with Paul George. And you look at what the Clippers have done because of that. It allowed them, they said because of the second apron and all that, but what they really were saying is, okay, because of the second apron, we're going to be able to keep some guys on our roster. They signed to Chris Dunn. They traded for Bogdan Bogdanovic. They got Derek Jones. They might not seem like really big deals, but even last night when they're limiting the roster, that's 48 minutes of basketball. And during the year, it was a lot more than that. And so what I think is happening here is that filling out your roster to the whole way through is becoming more and more important. Denver's running into this right now in this place. We're going to see what happens. I think the Clippers may get them. But when I talk about the Jazz making this idea of a Damian Lillard trade, it might be the right thing. Well, at some point here, you're going to have a roster that's pretty full. You're going to make moves. You're going to have players. You're going to have guys getting paid. If you can add in players who are inexpensive that are giving you minutes and are good because they're decent draft picks, that's pretty big. Cason Wallace is giving Oklahoma City 28 minutes a night on a good rookie contract right now because of a trade they made. And they're going to add another one or two here in the upcoming years that while they pay Shea and they pay Jalen and they have to pay Chet, and then they're on the wrong side of this game, that they're bringing in players. So the issue is not as much that you don't build. The issue is that you don't build big two and big three. You have to have viable, more and more it looks to me, is that you have to have a viable 240 minutes of basketball. So the Lakers, who have Luka Doncic and LeBron James and Austin Reeves, didn't have 240 minutes of viable basketball on the roster. So suddenly JJ Redick is not substituting in the second half of a game. Let's watch what happens with the Warriors tonight. The Warriors don't have 240 minutes of basketball. Houston does. Houston's playing Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Aaron Holiday, and Steven Adams 15 minutes a night off their bench each. Golden State, Guy Santos is not an NBA rotation player, and he's playing 18 minutes a night. Maybe a little more. I'm not entirely sure, honestly, that Buddy Hield's an NBA rotation player at this point. And he's playing 30. And Quentin Post is cute, but I'm not sure. And he's playing 20. There, Trace Jackson Davis, I'm not sure he's an NBA rotation player. But you look at Houston's 8 guys, that's 240 solid minutes right now. You look at the Clippers' 8 guys, that's 240 solid minutes. Peyton Watson, DeAndre Jordan on the other side, and Michael Porter Jr. is banged up. And I'm not entirely sure he's bringing it. Like, that's a problem. So that's the answer on how you're building big twos and big threes, is you got to have depth. And so suddenly the idea that the Jazz can like look at this and say, okay, we got 2 more years of this development stuff. By 2026 season, we're developing. 2027, 2028, We're going to have cap money. Maybe it's even 2027. We're going to start putting some things into that cap money. We're going to do our version of Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet while our younger players develop. We're going to do our version. You kind of look at, Detroit with Tobias Harris and some of the veterans that they've added. Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, please catch the ball. And you do that same thing, and now you're hopefully a bottom-level playoff team. Well, if you can start bringing in some talent that's not expensive, you don't bust the system. And so those long-term draft picks may become very, very important. So on a trade like we're talking about Dame Lillard, yeah, makes all the sense in the world. Frankly, makes a lot more sense than the Giannis trade. All right, let's get into some of the players. We'll do two, and then we'll do a few, and then final set of players on the bottom of the draft. We did Nick Clifford yesterday, Colorado State. He's older, and he came out very, very well. Adu Thoreau out of Arkansas is 20.9 years old. So that's whatever. You guys can figure that out. He's 6'8". He's in the 81st percentile in transition, which is impressive, but just the 16th percentile in isolation. So he can run the floor, 106 opportunities, which is a lot. Got out in transition, but does not have a athleticism offensive game. He only took 13 pick and roll attempts as the ball handler all year, so there's not much there. 37 of them is the pick and roll man, where he's saying the pick and rolling. He was in the 39th percentile, doesn't jump. His shooting is questionable. This is Thoreau out of Arkansas, 34th percentile. So that's in the danger zone of shooting right there. That says he will not be an average NBA shooter. He's in the 20th percentile in catch and shoot. Bad shooting numbers right there. Very jumper off the dribble, 32nd percentile. So across the board here, we have non-shooter, no ball handling, pure athlete, transition. XL or YXEL. XL? Lendenborg out of University of Alabama, Birmingham, 22 and a half years old. So this is old. 6'9", again, 92nd percentile in transition, older than everybody. Athletic, big. He's like 240. 34th percentile in isolation, so not much there. Go to the spot up shooting game or pick and roll game, 53 of them in the 27th percentile. So that's ugly. Played a little bit of pick and roll man in the 15th percentile. Shooting's average, 53rd percentile shooting, 43rd percentile in catch and shoot, 29th percentile in jumper off the dribble. That's not great. So again, similar, and he's old. Another old one is Walter Clayton Jr. Walter Clayton Jr. might sound familiar to you because of the NCAA tournament. A lot of people want him then. We'll find out next whether you think that's an answer, plus late game watch on Locked on Jazz. NCAA Final Four darlings are usually, in my opinion, a stay away. But in the case of Walter Clayton Jr., he's got a bunch of things that make you worried, but we're also talking about 28th, 29th, or 30th pick of the first round. Or maybe in our case, 21st. He's 22 years old. Okay, so he was an old guy beating up on young players. He's 6'3". He was in the 73rd percentile in transition. In 28 isolation attempts, he's in the 96th percentile. On 245 pick and roll attempts, this is only surpassed by the European guys, he's in the 77th percentile. That's a good zone to be in. He's in the 88th percentile in spot-up shooting. This is a lot of Dalton Connect here. It's just shorter. But certainly comfortable playing point guard at 245. I mean, probably viable backup point guard who can shoot. 80th percentile in catch and shoot. Unguarded catch and shoot, 80th percentile, and 89th percentile off the bounce shooting. I generally don't like NCAA darlings. Recency bias skews, which they are. And frankly, they're probably played 2 games against bad teams. I don't like older players at 22, but If we're talking the bottom end of the first round, it's a totally different equation. The older player, bottom end of the first round, ready to go. All these shooting numbers. Walter Clayton Jr. will have an impact in his rookie year. Those numbers are real. Alex Condon, Florida center, 20 and a half years old, 6'11", 73rd percentile, the same amount of attempts as Clayton. It's kind of weird. He was a pick and roll man on 58 attempts rolling, and he was in the 13th percentile, which is ugly. His shooting's all right, 73rd percentile, 58 attempts. His catch and shoot's only in the 45th percentile, and he has no dribble off the bounce game. You've got a 20-and-a-half-year-old, 6'11" project who can shoot a tiny bit. And Rashier Fleming out of St. Joe's, 6'9", 20-and-a-half years old, 90th percentile in transition on 66 attempts. 71st percentile in pick and roll as the roll guy, not as a popper. His shooting is in the 62nd percentile on 150 attempts, which is not bad. His catch and shoot game is in the 79th percentile, which is actually pretty good. And he had no off-the-bounce game. He only took 4 of them all year. Those are our top 30 players. I'll dig in a little bit more, but right now we have 6 of them in green for different reasons. Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Trey Johnson, Jace Richardson, Nick Clifford, Walter Clayton Jr. We're going to miss on some of the bigs. We don't, because unless they shoot. Our guys who came out best in transition, and transition was interesting because transition is the one where if you're over the 90th percentile, you end up being a 20-minute-a-night player about 80% of the time. Cooper Flagg, Maluch out of Duke, the center, Knippel out of Duke, the wing, Colin Murray Boyles, the South Carolina 6'7" athlete, Igor Demin out of BYU, a guy we have red flagged as a questionable, Noah Asanji. I need to learn how to pronounce this, guys. Is in the 86, not 90. Sorry, he shouldn't have counted there. Asa Newell out of Georgia's in the 95th percentile. And Yexel Lenborg out of UAB is in the 90th percentile. The best isolation players of the draft: Nick Clifford, Will Riley, Illinois, Colin Murray Boyles, and Kasparis out of Illinois. The best pick and roll ball handlers in the draft with enough opportunity: Jace Richardson on 91 attempts, Nick Clifford on 113 attempts, Cooper Flagg on 129 attempts, Dylan Harper on 166 attempts. Best shooters of the draft. Sorry, I got to freeze the screen here. Best shooters of the draft. In the 89th percentile, Walter Clayton Jr. is the best. Oh, wait, that's off the dribble shooting. Spot up shooting. Knippel, 98th percentile. Jace Richardson, 93rd percentile. Dylan Harper, 86th percentile. It's really good. Can't wait to watch him today. Walter Clayton Jr., 88th percentile. Those are the 4 best shooters in the draft on spot up. The best catch and shoot players in the draft: Jace Richardson, Con Knippel, Trey Johnson, Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton Jr. Best off the bounce shooters, off the dribble shooters: Walter Clayton Jr., Nick Clifford, Danny Wolf, the 7-footer out of Michigan, Trey Johnson, Jace Richardson. That's your rundown of all the draft stuff. Quickly, I mean, obviously, Jalen Brunson, it's one of the greatest shots of all time in the Knicks. Pistons game. Pistons collapse late. I will give two things I thought were interesting. Give JB Bickerstaff credit. He stopped going Cade Cunningham isolation, which we talked about all week long. It was not something Cade Cunningham's good at. Played pick and roll, and Cade just couldn't finish at the rim, which is just his biggest weakness. Cade Cunningham, it's incredible, his development. He's great. He's going to be super. He's a mini Luka. He plays better defense. But he really is a bad rim finisher. We've talked about it on the show all year, and it came to get him. And he's gotten better at it, but that is the issue for him. He is, in his 4 years in the league, he's been in the 28th, 14th, percentile. This is percentile. 28th percentile, 14th percentile, 19th percentile. And this year he was up to 30th percentile finishing the rim. But he is not a good rim finisher. He's not a good isolation player. And that came to roost in the playoffs. Obviously, they threw the ball all over the place late. Malik losing the ball, bad inbound pass. But I thought JB Bickerstaff adjusted well as the series went on. And then the other one I thought was really interesting is I had said earlier, I did not like the fact that Tobias Harris was guarding Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Duren was just hovering in the middle trying to play the I'm not guarding Josh Hart game and I'll impact the drives and things, but then never having an impact on the game. They did then switch Jalen Duren onto Karl Anthony Towns. I'm actually not sure it worked. The data would actually say it didn't work. So I think I was wrong on that, but that was the logical next move on that. All right, that is Locked on Jazz today. I'll be back with you on Monday. I think I got a little travel in there. I got to figure out possibility of Leaf on Monday. One of us will be here for you Monday. It's Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast in the Utah Jazz. Thanks for tuning in. Follow me at DLock09 if you'd like to on social. As I watch players, I'll probably leave little shorts around for that and things like that, random thoughts on players as I'm watching them. And other things at DLock09 and on YouTube. So please follow me on that. Thanks so much. Right now, we send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA, plus game night, every game on Locked On NBA audio. Have a good one.